Hello everyone. Today we are going over a system design course today, and today we're focusing on the concept of declarative web-based querying. Now, to dive into our concept, in the world of web development, the distinction between declarative and imperative programming paradigms play a pivotal role. So, declarative and imperative. Where declarative programming focuses on the what, and imperative programming focuses on the how. For largely in web-based querying, a large portion of it is curated towards declarative programming and is especially useful in tasks such as styling web pages and querying databases. Declarative programming allows developers to express their intentions on what should be done without specifying how to do it. This high-level approach is perfectly exemplified in CSS for styling and SQL for database inquiries. So, CSS for styling. And that's just an example right over here, and SQL for queries. Overall, it offers a stark contrast to the more detailed and step-by-step nature of imperative programming found in JavaScript DOM manipulation and procedural database access methods. The essence of declarative programming lies in its ability to abstract away the complexities of how tasks are executed. This not only simplifies the developer's job, but also leads to more readable and maintainable code that's scalable, efficient, and reliable. If we were to go further in depth in CSS styling, developers define the desired styles for elements based on their state or properties, and the browser takes care of applying these styles. Similarly, when querying databases with SQL, the developer specifies the data they want to retrieve or manipulate, and the database engine figures out the most efficient way to fulfill the request. So, SQL, manipulate the data. CSS styling, focus on front-end styling. And now let's go over a concept example. And now to be able to submit our concept, let's go over a concept example. So in web development, there is a distinction between declarative and imperative programming styles. To illustrate the difference, let's consider a task of highlighting the active page in a website's navigation menu. So we are highlighting a website's navigation menu. And the following HTML structure that we have over here is basically just a series of lists that we would have depending on each item that we are able to make for a navigation bar, such as we have a home, about, services, or contact. And with the CSS, we can declaratively define the styles for the active page by specifying a class called active. Now, some people would say when they first look at the HTML and CSS code that the class active is not present, but this is where our JavaScript is actually going to come in. So to be able to explain in depth of the CSS script, the CSS rule will apply to a blue background and a white text to anchor any tag that has a and also specifically on that anchor tag that is a direct child of a list item to anchor tag A and the list item li. With the class active. This is a declarative approach because when you define what specifically you want the style to be without specifying how to apply it, instead you're just given explicit instructions. On the other hand, using JavaScript, the developer would make it an imperative approach over here. So the CSS over here would be declarative, and the JavaScript would be imperative. So on the other hand, using JavaScript, what we are going through is that this JavaScript snippet illustrates over each navigation item and adds the active class right over here, indicated right over here, right in this point. So it's applying to all the components between each of the nav items that we have whenever we are calling upon active for each class list that we have. And where the anchor tag is, we're going to locate the active class and put it inside of this nav item that we have. So that way it's already making a declaration to the active status that we have within our nav item that we have specified in our CSS, and communicates accordingly between the CSS and HTML files set in place. The following styles are applied directly through JavaScript and specifies exactly how the CSS would actually be applied for inside of our HTML file. The declarative CSS method is generally simpler and easier to maintain in general. Whereas the imperative JavaScript approach can be more verbose and error-prone. Easy to errors. However, the CSS approach allows a browser to handle state changes like the current page without additional code to manage these changes, whereas the JavaScript approach requires explicit instructions to manage the state. So just highlighting the differences between declarative and imperative when applied to web-based. So we already know, for instance, between CSS, JavaScript, and how they can be applied for declarative and imperative programming within our HTML file. So now let's go over a practice problem to help solidify our concept of understanding. So in our scenario, we're tasked with dynamically styling a list of items fetched from an API where items that are marked as urgent need to be highlighted in red. So we are doing a dynamic styling of a list. Every .urgent item must be listed as red. And so let's go over the basic definitions for how we apply this for declarative and imperative programming. So for declarative, focus on what, imperative, how. So what we need to do is going to be for the following. So let me I'll just go over here. Okay, so for step one, what we will be doing is that we're going to define the CSS script for urgent items. So let's take a look at our CSS script. So what we have is that we have a list item that we have in this case, and then we're also calling upon urgent, and for every urgent item we're also going to list as red. So we specify the color, so we go with declarative programming in CSS to specify what for the color. And then for step two, what we'll be doing is that we'll apply the class based on item properties. And so what we will be doing is that we have a class called listItem. So technically in CSS, so this is just the HTML code that we got from the last example, but instead of the nav item, we are going to have our list item specified as the class that is right here. And then what we will be doing is that we're going to take this urgent listing, and that we are going to be modifying with our, let me just put this right here, HTML, CSS, and then JavaScript. And inside of our JavaScript, what we are doing is that we're doing an API call. So we're doing the API call for a list of items. And iterate through apply. Through and apply for the urgent call. And so what we were doing is that for every item that we have specified as a list item, right here, which would be inside of our HTML, we are going to put in an urgent, and every urgent call that we have for each list item that we have, whenever we are calling, it's all going to be turning red for our background color, while keeping the color white. And so overall, it's just a simple two-step process for what we would be doing to be able to see how we would apply in the concept of styling for declarative and imperative programming, where our first step focuses on declarative and the other part focuses on imperative programming in JavaScript. Let me just specify this over here. So this is imperative and CSS is declarative over here. And feel free to take a screenshot of our following practice problem, and we'll move over to the second one. And now, to be able to solidify our understanding, let's go over our second practice problem. So in our second practice problem, we need to highlight items that are newly added to an HTML list using a green background. So what we are doing is that we are highlighting newly added items with a green background. In our HTML web page file. And so, while going through this, we need to ask ourselves what's going to be declarative, and then imperative. And to go through the steps, step one, we need to define a new CSS class for the new items. We do so within our following CSS script. So we notice that we have a list item that we have, similar to the class ID that we have in the HTML. And then we have a new item that we will have with a green background specified here, and then the text in itself, well, being white, but the background color is still green. This class follows the declarative paradigm, specifying the desired outcome for new items without detailing the implementation. So we focus on new items are green. Actually, I would say new items background. That is what? Or I should say newly added items. And then for step 2, we're going to dynamically apply the new class via JavaScript. And inside of our JavaScript file, what we are doing is that we're going to modify the item's processing logic to check for, is there a new item right over here. So we're adding in isNew property and apply it to the new class accordingly. So inside of our JavaScript script, we are scanning through the whole list of items that we have. And for every item that we have, is it going to have a green background? And what we will do through the JavaScript code is to apply the class in an imperative manner to be able to append a following list item. Within our item list, to be able to check to see if each of the following items that we are adding is going to have a green background. So we specify with new, and then we also have new up here. So all we have to do, and this allows us to be able to scale efficiently instead of going directly inside of our HTML file, we can just continue to add new items with a green background as well, whenever we want to list items dynamically via JavaScript. And that way it keeps all of our code efficient and easy to scale and manageable. And let me just zoom here. And so, yes, this was declarative web-based querying for our system design course. Thank you again for taking time to watch this. If you found this helpful, be sure and feel free to like and subscribe. And if you have any other questions, please feel free to put them in the comments section. As always, take care. Cheers. Bye-bye.